Ladies and gents, welcome back to another video. In front of me here is a 2020 MacBook Air. This is the early 2020 Intel model, and today we're going to be reviewing it here in 2024, talking about some of the things it's good at, some of the stuff it's bad at, checking out the current prices for this specific model, and ultimately deciding, is this MacBook Air worth it in 2024? So right off the bat, we're going to go ahead and talk about the specs of my specific unit because mine is a little bit upgraded. You can see we're rocking the 1.1 gigahertz. That's a quad core i5, a 10th gen CPU, Intel Iris Plus. This is the G7 variant, which is actually different than the G4 variant found in the dual core i3 model. This has 8 gigs of LPDDR4X RAM clocked at 3733 megahertz. And of course, we're running macOS Sonoma 14.6. So on top of that, I do have a 512 gigabyte solid state drive in here. So we've got the upgraded storage and we have the upgraded CPU. RAM is standard. You could get 16 gigs if you spent a little extra money. And I believe you could go all the way up to 2 terabytes on that flash storage if you wanted. CPU wise, you could bump that up to a 1.2 gigahertz quad core i7, but the i5 and the i7 are essentially neck and neck when it comes to performance in this specific MacBook Pro because of the cooling solution, which we're going to talk about here in just a minute. So that's the specs of my unit. Now let's talk about the exterior. This is the same design as the M1 MacBook Air, which I'm sure you're very familiar with. It does have the Magic Keyboard, which Apple updated in 2020. That means we are finished with the butterfly keyboard. So this has an actual real keyboard, if you will. It's not the little clickety, really short travel switches. This is a regular size keyboard. We've got a dedicated Touch ID power button up here. And of course, there's no touch bar. Apple never offered the touch bar on a MacBook Air. And they actually don't even sell a computer with a touch bar anymore. So if you want a touch bar, you're going to have to find an even older used model because this is not going to be that. But touch bar, some people love it, some people hate it. I'm a fan of it, but that's just a personal preference. Down below that keyboard, we do have a beautiful trackpad in the sense that this thing is one of the best trackpads ever. It's a very nice size, and Force Touch, obviously, if you've never used a Force Touch trackpad, it is a real treat. Flanking the keyboard, we have some very nice sounding speakers. And let me get a little clip so you guys can hear just how these sound. All right, so we're going to be testing the MacBook Air speakers here on the left. And then on the right, I've got a 2014. This is a 15-inch MacBook Pro. These had some amazing speakers when they came out. This design was launched in 2012, and then it saw all the way through 2015. So we're going to be comparing how these two sound. I'm going to try my best to use the exact same audio here so that there is no skipping a beat. And once I get that set up, I will give you guys the chance to hear it. All right, so here's going to be half volume, and I'm going to leave the microphone attached to my camera here. So this is how it sounds from where I am currently sitting. So here we go. So hopefully you guys could hear that decently well. The 2020 MacBook Air sounds a lot better than our 2014 MacBook Pro, even though this MacBook Air is much thinner and lighter. It's super impressive that Apple has been able to design its speakers to be so efficient that they're able to produce that much noise inside of something this small. Truly, truly amazing. So MacBook Air 2020, fantastic speakers. It's actually the same ones that are in the M1 MacBook Air. So if you're considering either of those, same speakers, they sound very nice. All right, so moving on to the display. This is a 13.3 inch Retina display. and the resolution is good. The colors are good. It's an LCD panel. It is 60 hertz. And so there's no promotion. If you're used to anything more than 60 hertz, this is going to feel a little bit laggy. But if you're coming from an older MacBook, then no problems at all. This will be a great display. Viewing angles are very nice. Apple has some of the best LCD displays in the market. And the brightness is a max of 400 nits, which is the same as the M1 MacBook Air. So there's no difference there. And the MacBook Pro 13-inch from this time era has a 500 nits display, so a little bit brighter. And then obviously the new 14 and 16-inch are a lot brighter as well. But the new MacBook Airs M2 and M3 only have a 500 nits display, also 60 hertz. So not a huge difference there. On the left here, we do have 2 ports. These are USB-C ports, good for Thunderbolt 3 speeds. So you've got those 2. That's where you charge this computer as well. Over here, you've got a single headphone jack, which is there on the right side. Okay, so now let's talk numbers. I went ahead and ran Geekbench 6, which gives us a somewhat of an overview of the CPU and the GPU performance, and I'm gonna pull up those values now. So here is our single core and multi-core score. The MacBook Air with its quad-core i5 scored 1265 single core, 3110 multi-core. Now, I'm gonna do a little bit of a comparison here to a couple other computers. So we're gonna compare our 2020 MacBook Air to a 2014 15-inch. Single core is a little bit better on our 2020, but multi-core is actually better on our 4th gen i7 that scored higher than our 10th gen i5. So moving on from that, we have an M1 MacBook Air, and wait till you see these numbers. Single core is almost 2400. That is double the single core of our Intel model, and then multi-core 8600. That is approaching triple the multi-core score of our quad-core i5. So Apple Silicon really is magical. There's just something about it. It does everything just a lot better. Oh, and graphics. I didn't show graphics. This is the Metal score for the MacBook Air, and I didn't run Metal on this, but it's around 30,000. So triple the graphics performance on the M1. So there are the numbers for you guys if you're interested in seeing those. All right, now we're gonna play a little Minecraft. So this computer is not known for its gaming capabilities, and I think you're gonna see why here in just a minute. Let's get this set up. I usually do resolution half. So we'll do 1280 by 800. We'll set the render to 16, simulation to 8, FPS 60, and then we will make it full screen. And I'll move this camera so you guys get the best possible viewing angle here as we attempt to play Minecraft on our MacBook Air. All right, here we go. I think we're gonna get some fan noise and some stuttering here in just a few seconds. So we're gonna go ahead and fly up and let this map load in. The MacBook Air is notorious for having a really poor cooling system. That started in 2018 and stayed in the 2019 refresh, and the Intel 2020 model has an abysmal cooling system. There is a fan, but it is not connected to a heatsink in any way. The CPU does not actually have a heatsink that's connected to the fan, so there is just no way for the system to cool itself. The fan just kind of spins aimlessly inside of the chassis, and that air does not cool the CPU, GPU at all. So once that thing reaches 100 degrees Celsius, it essentially just throttles itself to maintain normal temperatures. So what does that mean for normal use? Well, not a whole lot, but if we're playing a game here, that's gonna result in some loud fan noise and a system that does not perform very well because it's not able to cool itself. So one thing I like to do here is I like to sprint through the edge of the map and see if the game is able to keep up. And it is certainly not. We have lost everything there. I actually just did this last night on a 2011 MacBook Pro 15-inch. So that's running a 2nd gen Core i7, but it is cooled properly. So while that CPU is significantly less powerful here than our 10th gen i5, that CPU was able to maintain its clock speeds, and that resulted in the computer being able to play Minecraft pretty decently. So here we are barely able to keep up. I would not even say we're able to keep up because the map is just hardly loading at all. So I would say for creative world, doing some huge projects, flying around, that sort of thing, probably not your best bet on this MacBook Air, but if you're playing survival, I think this is certainly doable here. Frame rates are, I'd say, around 30 to 40 or so. That should show up on camera for you guys because I'm recording this at 60, which we are certainly not getting 60 FPS. I am actually impressed that there's no fan noise yet. I know these models are notorious for being really loud, and I am gonna guarantee you that this thing is maxed out at its temperature. So I don't know if maybe the fan's just not working. Let me move the microphone down and we'll see if there's any fan noise coming from the back of our MacBook. So I don't hear anything. Let me just keep on going here. I wonder if the computer is in fact able to modulate its noise better than I was expecting. Maybe there was an update in macOS that changed that, but traditionally these things are so loud. It's really a shame because the CPUs in these are very decent. I mean, the base model is that 10th gen i3, which is a dual core chip, still a very capable processor, and then the quad core i5 and quad core i7 10th gens should be very powerful for what they are inside of this thin and light MacBook, and it's really too bad that Apple did not cool them properly. So I'd say Minecraft is certainly playable. I'm actually very surprised here at our performance. I was expecting much worse. It's certainly no screamer, and it's not anything near the 2020 M1 MacBook Air or even a MacBook Pro from 2010, 2011. Those things are a lot better, but certainly playable, and I think that's going to do it for our Minecraft demonstration. All right, so as we wrap up our discussion, let's check on the pricing for our MacBook Air here and just see what they're going for and ultimately decide if an Intel MacBook Air 2020 is worth it. So we'll do MacBook Air 2020 i3. And we'll do newly listed. Actually, no. Yeah, we'll do newly listed so we get a fair spread of options here, and we will see what shows up. So 400 is way more than I would spend for one of these. Here's one for under 300. I think you'd have to go less than 300 to find value in one of these because once you get into that $400 range, you're in the same ballpark as an M1 MacBook Air, and that thing is significantly better. The only reason I would recommend an Intel model is if you just absolutely need boot camp for some reason and just don't want to buy an older MacBook, because for $300 you can get a lot better value than this Intel 2020 MacBook Air. Of course, mine is the upgraded i5, and I got this for a really good price. I don't think I mentioned that before. I'll put the price right there for you guys to see. That's how much I paid for my specific model, and I thought that was a fairly good value for myself. So if we're here in the i5 category, these also have 512, but 16 gigs of RAM. These are around $500. I would not pay that. You can get a MacBook Air, even a MacBook Pro M1 for that price. I think if you're looking to get one of these under $300 and find one in good condition with low battery cycles, so something like under 300 battery cycles. So there you go. 300s are the numbers to go for. $300, 300 battery cycles, and I think you will be just fine. This is a great computer for web browsing, doing email, typing documents. I mean, you can even play a little Minecraft on here. We saw that. So I would not recommend video editing, maybe some 1080p stuff, but certainly no 4K. It is a capable little laptop, but in the scheme of things, I'm not sure it's really worth it anymore unless you can find one for a really good price and you just love the design, because it is a very nice design and it looks fantastic with its Retina display. So that's going to do it for this video. Leave me a comment down below. Are you rocking a 2020 MacBook Air? If so, how do you like it? And what are some things you don't like about it? That's going to do it for this one. Thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, I look forward to seeing you in another one of my videos.